Hiya, Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
You want to go do a podcast?
Sure.
Jump in.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sasquatch and Yeti, missing links of all ages, and everyone else, welcome to Binging Barbie. I'm your host, John, and with me I have my co-host. He's had many names: Skookum, Ragaru, Shinaha, Lufu, and most commonly known in a muddled deviation of an old Hucklemelon dialect as Jay.
Yep, that's me.
What, you're forcing me to say these random weird words?
The quotes page for this movie on IMDb is a little anemic. I used to just like pause movies and write down quotes as we were watching them, especially like the Barbie movies where there aren't a ton of quotes available online. But with these Laika ones, I've been, because they have pretty robust quotes pages, except for this one.
Anemic is a word for it, I suppose. Anyway, this is a podcast about toy media franchises, 2000s nostalgia, and whatever else we want to talk about. And this week we are talking about Laika's most recent film, as of 2025, Missing Link.
Yeah. This is one. Had you ever seen this one before?
I remember seeing the trailer and being like, not interested.
Yeah, I had a similar reaction to the trailer. I did actually watch this when it came out. Actually, I think I have a date for when I watched this since I logged it on Letterboxd. But that was around the time when I was, trying to, and I guess I still do. I still try and watch the best animated feature nominees at the Oscars. So I went out of my way to see this one. Okay, yeah. So I saw it later in the year, but that same year that it came out, and yeah, we'll get into it. Yeah, this was released April 12, 2019, directed and written by Chris Butler, who was of course the writer and director of Paranorman, with music by Carter Burwell, who did several of the Twilight movies.
It's, man, Laika hasn't really done a film in so many years.
Yeah, it's gonna be 7 years by the time Wildwood comes out, assuming it comes out next year.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm hoping that means good things, that they spent time on getting that one right.
We shall see. But let's focus on what they do here. So, yeah, as the story goes, we have Sir Lionel Frost, who returns from yet another adventure where he failed to bring back proof of a fantastical creature he encountered. He comes across a letter sent by someone telling him that he can find a Sasquatch in Washington State. And Lionel makes a bet with Lord Piggott Dunsby, the leader of the Explorers Club he wants to be part of. If Lionel can come back with proof of the Sasquatch, Dunsby will allow him to join the club. So Lionel goes to Washington and meets the Sasquatch in question, an articulate creature who has given himself the name Susan. And Susan wants Lionel's help to find his relatives, the Yeti rumored to be hidden in Shangri-La. Lionel agrees, and they set off to find a map kept by Adelina, the widow of one of Lionel's adventurer friends. After some disagreement, she decides to join the two on their adventure. The group have several encounters with Stank, a mercenary hired by Dunsby to stop Lionel. Eventually, they make their way to Shangri-La and find a society of Yeti. And these Yeti have intentionally cut themselves off from humanity and reject the adventurers and Susan. On the way out of Shangri-La, the party encounter Stank and Dunsby, who destroy the bridge in an effort to keep Lionel from winning their bet. Lionel decides he no longer cares about being part of the club, choosing his friendship with Susan instead. A set piece ensues where Stank and Dunsby fall to the deaths. Lionel offers Susan to be his partner in adventure, and the two begin planning their next voyage to discover Atlantis, and that's the end.
Yeah. This was, so I guess a little bit more context for this that I probably should have put in the context thing. This was, I believe, I don't know, Wildwood might beat it out. But at the time this was released, this was the most expensive stop motion animated film ever made.
What?
With yeah, it cost $100 million, I believe. Let me double check that. Let me just make sure I have the numbers correct here. But it was expensive, and it did not make any money at all at the box office. This was a major bomb, to the extent that like I'm watching in the background here the reveal trailer for Wildwood, their next feature. They don't even mention Missing Link. They mention all of their other features except for Missing Link. This was, and it was like tepidly received. Like some people did like it. Most people thought it was kind of middle of the road. It did get an Oscar nomination for Best Animated Feature. But yeah, it made 25 million worldwide. Not seeing the budget here listed on the numbers. Wikipedia said that it was around $100 million, which is more than they would have ever made back. Like even Coraline wouldn't have made back that big of a budget, and that's their most financially successful production.
Where did that money go to?
I mean, it went to the animation here is very impressive. And there's a lot of big sets, a lot of big puppets that they're dealing with. This one, it felt like, we'll get into it when we get into the visuals, but it feels like they are animating more frames here than they have for their other productions. They have
Okay.
a whole bunch of different locations, a whole bunch of different costumes, and there's a lot going on here.
Sure, I suppose. I just found every other Laika film more impressive visually than this one. So,
Yeah. Well, we'll get into it in the visuals. I think there's a reason for that.
hmm,
But yeah, for the story itself, like
it's
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 average.
a quaint, yeah, it's a quaint little adventure story. And I mean quaint, like this does not feel exciting. It's
No.
obviously trying to be in the vein of like classic adventure serials or like Indiana Jones, this type of globe-trotting adventure movie with a bit more of a family-friendly twist on it. But yeah, it ends up kind of feeling like a whole lot of nothing. Like the previous Leica films, even the Box Trolls, have done a good job of feeling like they're going a little bit beyond generic kids movies, and stuff like Coraline and Paranorman are going way beyond that, and Kubo.
hmm Yeah.
One just kind of feels like a generic kids movie.
It is to the point where like the storyline is like I've seen it a lot. Anytime you have this adventurer who wants to achieve something, they usually always have the same arc of I don't care by the end, I care about friendship. And usually it's about caring about the creature that they were hunting to begin with. And that's pretty much exactly
Yeah,
what this character is. Although I say half the time this character is usually the villain in those stories, but um still it was just like, oh, well, I know exactly how this is going to happen, what's going to happen, but
yeah.
yeah, there was no surprise really whatsoever.
I think the big surprise for me first time watching this was when they got to Shangri-La and there were actual Yetis there. I just assumed it would be like, oh, this civilization has died out,
Except
rather
I
than
remember.
them actually being there and then rejecting Susan. But
So
yeah,
the
that
thing
isn't like
about it,
much of a twist.
yeah, because the Yeti were in the trailers. They showed them in the
Okay,
trailers.
yeah.
They even showed like his final line is like, "Oh, he's a much better man than you'll ever be." When he's confronting the villain at the end, it's like, "Oh, like we had the whole story already in the trailer, so I had no reason to watch it." It's like, okay, I get to see this character arc already through the trailer. So
Yeah, I must have not been paying close enough attention to the marketing material when I think I might have just like exited out of trailers after a little bit when I was like, oh, this doesn't look like it would be interesting to me. Because yeah, now I'm watching back the trailers, and yeah, they do have literally the entire film. all
Well,
of the
yeah. I
different
mean, I
locations, all
couldn't
of the
skip the
various
trailer
scenes.
because I was, sitting in the theater being forced to watch the
Yeah.
trailers. So
Yeah, I don't think I was seeing many movies that this would have been advertised in front of in like late 2018, early 2019.
yeah,
I'm trying to think if I saw this in the theater, but yeah, no, there's not much, like there's no reason to watch this and not watch one of the Indiana Jones movies. Unless you're really into stop motion animation as a medium. But even then, there's some things there that make this less exciting than previous Leica films.
yeah, pretty much.
Now, this does have some ideas that I like. I like the way it is criticizing British imperialism and sort of this trope of the explorer, which they're taking more of the 19th century explorer trying to find and discover everything in the world and conquer every mountain and um, bring sort of British culture to the rest of the world in a way that was not good. We'll put it that way. Um,
Sure, yeah,
Sort of forcing that view of civilization onto the entire world and expecting everyone to conform. And here we're
mm,
seeing that, like at the start, Sir Lionel has that desire to be a part of that club. Um, but then throughout the film, he is learning that that's not actually a healthy way to engage with this stuff. It isn't about discovery. It isn't about exploration for the sake of the British Empire. It is there's personal relationships that are more important, and civilization doesn't just look like being British and drinking tea and having good table manners.
sure, yeah,
And like within that, the character arcs, like we've seen these types of character arcs before, but they are good character arcs.
yeah,
It just feels like the story isn't exciting enough to get me invested in those character arcs the way that I would want to be.
yeah, yeah. They don't really do anything unique with the arc. It's just like, yep, this is the typical arc for this type of character, and it was met.
Yeah. I I ended up falling asleep a couple times while watching this yesterday,
Cool.
which I had already seen it, so I wasn't worried about that. Usually I would be more concerned if I'm watching something for the podcast and missing scenes, but I really didn't feel like I had missed out on much. There wasn't a whole lot going on. The plot summary, I cut out like 30 minutes of the movie, basically. Could be
Yeah.
summarized as, oh, they're in a new location and someone else shows up and tries to stop them and they evade that person.
hmm Did you ever have like a monster hunting phase?
How so?
I mean, like the being interested in like the Bigfoot or like the typical
Yeah,
folklore.
I did the sort of cryptid. I would say I'm still kind of in that phase. I don't do a lot of, but I enjoy researching, not researching because it's not actually research, but just the legends behind these types of things, like the Loch Ness monster or the Kraken. The Kraken is always, as someone who is a little bit terrified of deep oceans, the Kraken has
Yeah.
always spoken to me. um yeah, how about
Yeah.
you?
I had like a big phase in middle school where I would watch a lot of those trashy History Channel shows about the history of like the UFOs and the aliens. And there was this one show called Monster Quest where each episode's like, we're gonna go and find these monsters and see if they're real. So like they go into like the forest and like somebody shakes like the bushes in the background. It's like, oh, what's that? I saw something, and they had like these very cheap recreations with like terrible CGI recreations of the monster. The only monster that they quote unquote found was the giant squid, which, isn't really much of a surprise. It's like we knew the giant squid is out there, but hey, what
Yeah.
do you know? Every other episode was like so boring, but the squid one was pretty cool because they actually put a camera on a squid and let it go down to the deeper, and so that was pretty neat.
Yeah. I remember did you ever play Pop Tropica, the
I don't think I
online
did.
game?
No.
Okay. Cuz they had apparently this was back in 2011. I bought the wiki. I played it like briefly as a kid. They had a cryptid island, so you could
Hmm.
encounter the Loch Ness monster, the Yeti, the Chupacabra, Jersey Devil, Bigfoot. So that's where I think a lot of my interest in this sort of was spawned. And I remember it being like, I mean, Pop Tropica is a very kid friendly game that doesn't have much intensity in it, but I do remember finding some of the sequences a little bit um tense and scary as like a would have been 11 or 12 when that came out. So when I was playing that. So yeah,
I
that
mean, I played Neopets. I don't think it quite translates. Also, Club Penguin, but
yeah. Yeah.
you know,
But yeah, no, it is like it's fascinating. You know what I was thinking as you were talking? What the movie I would want to see Laika do is the sequel to Missing Link, which is instead of being about this quest to find the Yeti, just have Sir Lionel and Susan going around the world and like encountering different creatures. Because Laika has some really fun creature designs.
yeah,
And here we only get the Loch Ness monster at the beginning, and then everything else is Yeti or Sasquatch. Like what if they're going around the world and we get just little like episodic story beats of like, hey, here they're looking for this one, and here they're looking for that one, and like
yeah.
that feels like it would be more, and it would be more suited to this kind of lighthearted tone than this big globe-trotting adventure that like it never feels exciting enough.
No, I mean that was going to be the Atlantis TV show,
Yes,
the Disney
yes.
show that they never ended up greenlighting. So we never really got to
Which
see.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like the I grew up I don't think I like it. I would have to rewatch it with adult eyes. But I do remember watching the sequel a
Milo's
lot,
return.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and like especially the Kraken stuff was really
Mm-hmm.
interesting to me. But that was like a very interesting, and they had like the coyote. I should rewatch that. I feel like I'm going to be disappointed rewatching it, but I remember being fascinated by it and sort of the weirdness of the various creatures that they're interacting with.
It makes me sad because like it, like I went through a whole Disney binge like a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
and like I got to that and was like, man, I really would have liked a show like that, even though every fantasy creature is apparently connected to Atlantis somehow. Um,
Yeah.
but still, it was a cool concept. But no, instead, it was like, all right, first three
I mean that
episodes,
is
make it a
yeah.
movie.
That is kind of what like Scooby Doo is.
Yeah,
Even though
yeah.
that's always like people in costumes, but having the like more episodic structure and like, oh, they're just encountering various different creatures throughout this thing.
Or the X Files.
Which yeah, something like that in a movie format with Leica's animation. That would be
Hmm.
something I could get into, as opposed to this sort of big globe-trotting adventure that feels a little inert because it doesn't have the propulsion, the narrative propulsion to carry it through. It's really fascinating to me that their previous films were pushing the boundaries so much of what animation, what kids films can deal with as concepts.
Hmm.
Where we're dealing with, light horror elements, we're dealing with lots of gross out humor, like Kubo is getting into action and martial arts. Missing Link isn't really doing that.
No.
And I don't mind that Laika wanted to sort of branch out and do something very different. But yeah, it feels like a minor work in a way that none of their other films do.
Yeah.
Maybe Box
Pretty
Trolls to
much.
an extent, but even Box Trolls feels more memorable than this does.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I keep thinking back to the Wildwood title reveal, I think is what it's officially called, where they are showing scenes from all of Laika's films except for this one. This one is conspicuously missing. Now, I think part of that is rights reasons, because this one was distributed by Annapurna rather than Focus
Ah,
Features, which I think is also why it hasn't gotten a steelbook.
but
But yeah,
I'm not sure we're
it's
all dying for a steelbook of this one.
no, no. I have all of the other Leica steelbooks, and this one just doesn't. I don't care that they don't have a steelbook, because I don't particularly feel the need to own this.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I gave the story here a 2.5 out of 5. It's not bad. It's just not good either.
Yeah. I just gave it a 3. It is what it is.
Yeah. I think the characters are the most interesting part here, and they're kind of being held back by such a bland story. Like Sir Lionel, I really like his character arc here. At the start of the movie, he has this big dream of what he wants his life to be. And he wants to be a part of this club. He wants to be this respected adventurer. But he's very oblivious to how the people around him are affected by his actions. Like, he nearly gets his first assistant killed, and the assistant like leaves him, and even that isn't enough to be a wake up call. And even when we see him like walking into the club, he's banging on the door with his cane. He's a little bit distracted, so he's looking away, and then the butler shows up and he's banging on the butler. There's no apology there. He's just like, oh, you opened the door for me, that is what you're supposed to do, so now I will walk through here. And you see this throughout. He has very little consideration for the people around him, not in a like not in an entitled way necessarily, but instead in just a he's not interested in that. He's interested in his own story, his own legend. As Adelina points out to him near the end of the film, that the legend he has been chasing is his own. He wants
Yeah.
to discover these things not just because he wants to discover them, but because he wants to be the one to have discovered them.
Mm-hmm.
And so throughout this journey, we're seeing him have to kind of confront his own worldview and realize that maybe it's there are other people out there who he needs to be paying attention to. And
Yeah.
also that like this club is not a good place. That him wanting
Yeah.
to be a part of the club is not a thing he should be aspiring to.
It's not as glamorous as it might seem it to be. It's just a bunch of old
Yeah.
people.
Well, not even not as glamorous. It is harmful. Their approach to exploration is harmful. We see um Lord Piggott Dunsby, the way he is interacting with the people around him and his worldview. It is like what Sir Lionel is moving towards at the beginning of the film, of just being completely unaware of how his actions are affecting the people around him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I like his arc here. I think it is well constructed. I don't think the beats are spaced out particularly well. And again, the
No.
story just isn't exciting enough to make me invested in his arc here.
Yeah.
And yeah, Susan kind of has the found family arc here, where he thinks he wants to find others like himself, but instead finds friends along the way that give him a
Of
sense of
course.
meaning and purpose. Um, yeah, it's very simple. I think in part because Sir Lionel is the one who needs to do more growing of the two, so Susan is kind of a little less dynamic in his arc. Now, I do like the Amelia Bedelia thing, the way
Mm,
Susan interprets everything literally.
yeah.
I think it's fun. I kind of wish they had done more with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like this side gag that they do sometimes. But
Yeah.
yeah. I,
Yeah,
I
that
like those
it
books.
comes up in, yeah. I should read those books again, because I like that kind of pointing out of the weirdness of language,
Mm,
that when Sir Lionel is like, I give you my word, and Susan's like, what word? Just does not understand metaphor in any way, shape, or form, or
right.
takes things to the extreme, like throw the rope over the wall. So Susan throws the entire coil of rope over the wall. Then Lionel is being sarcastic. Well, we might as well throw my bag over the wall too while you're at it. So Susan throws the bag over the wall.
Yeah.
Just the literal interpretation. That's a style of humor I find fun.
Hmm.
And I wish I got it. I think my favorite moment though was at the end when Susan is like, "Oh wow, you did so good. Thank you for saving me and for like choosing me over this club." And Sir Lionel's like, "Don't mention it." Susan's like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, there's just like those little moments are so much fun that I wish there had been more of that sprinkled throughout.
Yeah.
But yeah, Susan as a character is like what you expect for a character in a kids animated movie that's voiced by Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Adelina, um, she is sort of the Marion to Sir Lionel's Indy. If we're doing the Indiana Jones thing, she's the sassy leading lady.
I
She's a little
suppose,
bit
yes.
more, yeah. She's a little bit more. I don't know. She doesn't quite fit, but she fits that dynamic. They have that sort of the bickering, the previous history.
Yeah,
Adelina's a
you're
lot
right.
older than Marion, but or not a lot older, but older.
Sure, yeah. And they don't have the rekindled romance by the end.
Yeah, yeah. Which I think is to the film's credit. I think it kind of feels a little forced, the scene at the end, but I do appreciate that they decided to not go in a romantic route with these characters.
Yeah, because they did nothing to really build that romance. So,
Yeah. But she does have like a history with him, and there's clearly this previous romance that he still remembers, but she's kind of over.
yeah, I'm surprised that he never ended up, like, talking about his adventurer friend by the end and, like, regrets anything.
Yeah.
It's just, like, a forgotten plot line. Or, like,
Yeah, because that feels very in keeping with his arc of having to realize the way that he's been a little bit selfish about how he's been doing these things. To be like,
hmm
oh yeah, my friend was actually a good adventurer too, and I never gave him the credit for that. But no, that they don't have time for that apparently. Just kind of
yeah.
skip over that. Yeah, Adelina's kind of stuck in the role that women characters often get stuck in these things of she has to be the voice of reason when the boys are fighting.
True.
She sort of has to be the emotionally mature person in this trio, the one who has the coolest head when approaching situations.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think she works well in that role. I think that's just a very obvious tropey version of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to say about her because she doesn't really have an arc here.
No, she was
She has
just
hints of an arc, but yeah.
right. Yeah.
She decides at the end she's going to go off on an adventure of her own, and that's kind of
Okay.
it.
I mean,
it.
sure.
It felt a bit to me like the end of Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, where Alice gets back to the real world, is like, actually, I'm going to go sail to China. It's like, okay. I don't know what this has to do with anything that came before it, but okay. I mean, here it's a little bit more related, but yeah, it's like, okay, thanks for telling us. See you in the sequel, maybe, if there is one.
Yeah.
Now, for the villain here, we have Lord Piggott Dunsby,
Mm-hmm.
which fun name, play on the word bigot,
Yeah.
and I guess pig as well, because he is kind of yeah,
And he's a
he sort of
dunce.
represents everything. Yeah, yeah. He represents
Mm-hmm.
everything wrong with the British Empire here. This exploration for the sake of expansion, this desire to conquer and rule. He's extremely. It's not like classist because Sir Lionel is in the same social class as him, but he is excluding Sir Lionel from the club because he just doesn't really like him, and he sees Sir Lionel as beneath him. He's also like very racist and misogynist in a very obvious way, but a way that I think works really well. They aren't beating around the bush. They aren't treating it metaphorically. At one point, he sees, this is at the end of the film when Sir Lionel is on the bridge with Susan and Adelina, and Piggott Dunsby is like, "You're teaming up with them, with apes and women," and to him, Sir Lionel teaming up with a woman is as like
Yeah.
much of a faux pas as him teaming up with a literal Sasquatch.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, potentially even more, since he puts it last. He's like, what are you doing? Treating women like humans?"
Oh, goodness gracious me. Yep.
Yeah, no. It's I like the when the character is so obviously and over the top in that sense. Like, they're not trying to hide who this character is.
No.
Works well for that sort of villainous role. And this is ultimately his own undoing, that his hatred of everything that he doesn't like and his desire to prove Sir Lionel wrong ends up with him destroying the bridge that he falls down. In that Disney villain Gaston falling off the roof of the
Sure.
castle way. But yeah, then we have Steak, who's like a very fine secondary villain.
I think he overstayed his welcome. I think that first sequence
Yeah,
was enough with his character, and anything more was just like fodder, time fodder.
yeah, he's not a particularly dynamic character. Yeah.
Yeah.
Overall, I did give the characters a 3 out of 5. I think the story is what's holding them back more than the characters themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also give it a 3.
But yeah, on down to the visuals.
Visuals.
Let's start with the good. The
Good.
stop
Stop.
motion work
Yeah.
here is really, really good. It's very smooth. It's very pretty. The colors are
Mm-hmm.
very nice. The character models are good. Um,
Yeah.
I was watching some behind the scenes stuff, and like the puppet for Susan is very, very intricate and detailed and complicated. And the way that they make the breathing and there's some squash and stretch as well, and how they're animating him, which
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff is very, very difficult to do in stop motion. So it's really cool to see them putting in the effort and making it work.
Yeah.
And yeah, like we've said this for the other Laika films, the stop motion always looks very good. I was noticing even more than Kubo the CG elements. And not just the backgrounds and elemental elements, but also extras in the crowds.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I actually they did a behind the scenes feature on how they made this. This had, I think they said, twice as many CG or digital effect shots as any of their previous productions did. Um, for a lot of the shots, it's basically just the puppets, the main character puppets that are stop motion animated, and everything else is being done, the backgrounds, the sets, the everything being done digitally. And it looks good for the most part, but I do think there's something lost in this. There's a bit of like tactility to things that gets a little lost.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that's part of why this feels so much like a generic kids animated movie, because they're relying so heavily on CG.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like the Loch Ness monster scene at the beginning, so much of that is digital because it's the backdrops are digital, the water is digital, the splashing effects are digital. So it's literally just Sir Lionel and the Loch Ness monster puppet. And I'm not even sure about the Loch Ness monster puppet because it looks it's moving very smoothly in a way that doesn't look like stop motion. And that could very well just be like really, really high level stop motion that they're doing.
Hmm.
But at a certain point, it's like the thing that I love about stop motion is the way people find creative ways to work in its limitations. And I think there should be room for some digital work as well to kind of smooth out the process. But at a certain point, why not just make this a fully digital film? What is the stop motion adding?
Work.
Yeah,
That's what it's adding.
essentially. Yeah. And I think I would feel differently about this if I liked the story and the characters a little more.
Yeah. Or
But yeah,
yeah.
it feels like they put in a lot of effort to make something that looks good, but not in a way that like CG can't look good.
Or if there was like a thing that was like being done with a stop motion that they were able to do. Like Kubo, there was a lot of CG Kubo, but because they did the CG, their character movements and their fighting was like top notch and amazing. I didn't really feel that sense here, where I wasn't like surprised by things they did. It was just like, oh, okay, just stuff that they do. Just nothing,
Yeah.
nothing feeling worth the time spent to not do everything else. Anyway, it's it's
Yeah.
it's after a certain point I stopped like focusing on like what's CG and what's not. I'm like I don't really care anyway. It still looks decent enough. So
For me, I am like, as we are going through the series, at the beginning of the series, and just sort of having seen some of the Leica films myself, I was a little bit frustrated with the feeling that a lot of people have of like Leica using too much digital effects, and like if they're going to make a film with that many digital effects, why don't they just do a CG film? And I'm like, well, no, the stop motion stuff still stands out and still works really well. But as we've gone through these, and especially with this one, I am moving more towards that side of things, where I do really love and respect that the work that Leica has put into the stop motion here. But at a certain point, they're trying to make stop motion look more and more like CG to try and sell it to a wider audience.
Mm-hmm.
And they're losing the charm that makes stop motion special. So
Yeah,
when I go and like watch Wendell and Wild, where they keep the seam lines on the faces, where they're doing the replacements, like I can see what Henry Selick is doing more there of being very intentional about embracing the medium, as opposed to what Laika has been doing, which is trying to the way that they erase the seam lines, trying to make everything smooth and effortless or look effortless.
I think I even noticed that when the first trailers came out. I don't think I even realized that it was stop motion. I guess my brain thought it's like, oh, it's just
Yeah.
this weird stylized CG animation. Okay, I guess that's cool looking, but I don't really care about what they're showing me besides that. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, this is kind of, if not for the stop motion, this movie would be a whole lot of nothing.
yeah,
And even the stop motion has been sort of de-emphasized. They aren't asking you to pay as much attention to the craftsmanship the way that other stop motion films are. Which, again, it would be really cool if Leica somehow figured out how to make stop motion in such a way that it would appeal to general audiences the way that it doesn't tend to right now.
hmm,
I think a lot of that is just like general audiences being a little bit biased, but there is people will say that they're kind of creeped out by the way the puppets look, or the sort of the way the animation looks. Um, so I think there is some value in trying to create something that's maybe a little bit more mainstream, but you are losing the charm, and especially when you then have so many digital elements, it's a little bit disappointing.
sure.
Yeah, and I know Kubo also had a lot of digital stuff, but again, that one felt special. As you were saying, it felt like they were using the digital effects to save time and energy that they could then spend on creating very fantastic sequences. Whereas here, yeah, there isn't that much of a sense. So yeah, unfortunately, I gave the animation a 4 out of 5. I think the stop motion stuff is really, really good. I think the digital stuff brings it down.
Hmm. I was gonna just continue to give it a 5, but after our little discussion here, I think I dropped it down to a 4.5. Like, it's still well done and they put a lot of craft into it, but at the end of the day, I didn't feel that this was anything special, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm hopeful for Wildwood because they've spent so much time that maybe they've gone back to doing a little bit more practically. Hopefully, we will see.
Yeah.
If the story is good, I feel like I will be willing to give that a little bit more leeway anyway.
Hmm.
But yeah, performances are up next.
Yeah.
I don't think I really have any complaints for anyone here.
No, they're doing the job. We have Hugh Jackman. I like Hugh.
Yeah, he's fun.
Yeah.
You get some good moments. He does definitely feel like the type of actor who could also play this character. Actually, this whole cast, I could imagine them play these characters in a live action version.
Oh yeah.
They all very much fit their roles. Obviously, Zach Galifianakis as Susan,
Hmm.
Zoe Saldana as Adelina.
Of
She's always
course.
she's fun to hear in voice roles. Or I guess Avatar is a voice that's motion capture, but this type of role is always fun to see her in.
Hmm.
Stephen
Yeah.
Fry doing a good like Christopher Lee esque performance.
I Okay. I didn't really think about Christopher Lee, but sure.
I was getting little hints of it in a way that I found fun.
Okay.
Yeah,
Matt
a
Lucas.
lot of great performances.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, playing the that must be the the assistant guy
Yeah,
who's always writing things, I would
it's
assume.
the assistant. Yeah. Which, I don't know, feels like a waste of Matt Lucas. Because, like, it is Matt Lucas doing the typical performance, but I didn't feel like there was, like, enough of that character to warrant bringing in Matt Lucas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have a ton to say about the performances here. I don't think anyone did poorly,
No, they did their
but no
jobs.
one really, yeah, no one really grabbed my attention a whole lot. Outside of like Hugh Jackman, Zach Galifianakis, they have fun chemistry. Joey Saldana, she's always fun. I
Yeah.
gave the performances here a 3.5 out of 5.
So did I. Yeah. I have no complaints for anyone. I just, they're doing their job in this
Yeah.
underwhelming thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, onto the sound and music. Again, I don't really have any complaints here. Carter Burwell is a composer I like a lot for his work on Twilight. Here, there were some tracks that stood out to me, but nothing that I can recall thinking back on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't. The score was the score. I don't really have anything noticeable to say about it.
Yeah, it did its job.
Yeah.
It is capturing that sort of spirit of adventure.
Yeah. No other thoughts. I gave the music a 3.
Yep, I did as well, which leaves me with a 3.2 out of 5, or a 16 out of 25, which is a 64%, or a 3.2 out of 5 stars.
Yes. And I have a total score of 17 out of 25, which is a 68% or 3.4 5-star rating. So, yeah.
Yeah, kind of disappointing way to end this series thus far. Hopefully, Wildwood brings it back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for you listeners, that's going to be like at least another year from now when you get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this series was planned because that what film was supposed to come out at this point, but nah.
Yeah, it was supposed to come out later this year rather than a while. We'll see. Hopefully it does come out next year. Hopefully here's what I hope for. It either comes out no matter what it comes out, I hope that they have spent the time on it to get things right.
Sure.
Whether that be next year or the year after or farther after that. They do have Laika has been doing some they've been announcing a few projects more recently that seem pretty exciting and will hopefully be um, fun. They are doing an adaptation of the novel Piranesi, which I'm not familiar with. I've seen the cover, but it seems interesting. And they brought on David Kajanich, who's a writer that I really like his work. Um, and they also brought on a director who Pete Candeland, who directed some Gorillaz music videos and has sort of an idea for a film. So yeah, hopefully, I've been missing having Leica films coming out more consistently. So I'm hoping that this next decade they're able to kind of bring things back up to speed again and put out new good movies again.
Yeah. Movies that are interesting that could hopefully bring in audiences and make a little bit of money back.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
see. We'll see.
Honestly, like since they do have a wealthy benefactor in the Knight family, if they aren't making money, as long as they keep making movies
Sure.
and
Yeah.
pushing forward the medium of stop motion, and it's like yeah, Leica for as much as I have issues with their approach to things here on Missing Link, they are developing techniques and technology that then help with like Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio or Wendell and Wild, these productions that are less out there in terms of using digital elements, but are still benefiting from the technologies and things that Laika is doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I
Yeah.
think that is all that we have for
Yeah.
today. So, with that, thank you everyone for listening, and make sure to follow us on social media. We're Binging Barbie Podcast on Instagram and Tumblr, Binging Barbie on Blue Sky and Serialized, and Binging Barbie, a Barbie movie podcast on Letterboxd. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a 5-star review and go to our Patreon at patreon.com/Binging Barbie Podcast. We will be back next week to talk about our rankings about the Laika films. And until then, it ain't about the paycheck anymore. Now it's just a matter of shallow, self-centered pride. All right. Bye.
Bye, Susan.
Bye.